Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Another episode of Trash Talk. I'm Damian Hill. With me, as always, is TJ O'Connor. Tonight, we are joined by the Road Warrior, Zach Gehl, who's joining us all the way from Canada right now, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. Trash Talk is brought to you again by Valhalla Combat Sports Incorporated, Ink Shrinks Tattoo out of New Brighton, Minnesota, Origin Wellness CBD, the Striking Institute, Spartan Martial Arts, James Clark Sports Psychology and Hypnosis Therapy, The Fighters, and TJ's mom. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for being on. We're nothing without the fighters. We try to stress that as much as we can. And I guess, how are you feeling leading up to this fight? And we'll get more into the circumstances of the fight a little bit as we go into it. But how are you feeling about the fight and how's camp going?
Well, I'm feeling right now in the best shape of my life, and I'm always excited for the fight. The camp is always the hardest, and the fight's always the easiest because it's like the build-up. But this camp is kind of different because, well, I was supposed to have been having this fight, I believe, 2 times already, and the border has closed. So it's kind of like a roller coaster. You know, you get mentally prepared, you're in shape, which I've stayed in shape the whole time, but mentally you get ready and then the government's like, no. So it's been kind of bad, you know? It's like you're in prison for something you didn't do.
I mean, especially with being the road warrior, with all the traveling that you do, you know, being restricted like this, I know that's got to be driving you stir crazy. But I mean, with all of the stuff that is going on with the restrictions and the border closing and all of that, have they said anything about opening back up and then also extending it? Because one of the things that's going on here in Minnesota, or that was going on, was all of the restrictions we had, the quarantine, everything was shut down, and then they said, okay, we're going to end it next week, and then next week comes, and then they said, oh, we're going to end it in 2 more weeks. And it just kept getting extended and extended. Is that kind of the same thing that's going on, or have they just not even said anything?
It's kind of exactly the same thing over here, I guess, with the border, because the 21st of every month, they're like, okay, we're going to open it. And then they move it back a month. And then they say, okay, we're going to open it. And they move it back. But now that everything's kind of, you know, getting back to normal-ish, I hope that they actually stick with what they say and it'll actually open up. But again, that's another added thing. Like, you have that nerves of, can you even get to the fight, which is pretty horrible. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the crazy thing, and luckily the old verbiage lies, third time's the charm. So we got it set up, it's booked. I'm planning on it going, and I mean, I know we're speaking at this point on 2 separate governments, but we know that they're everybody's best friend, especially at a time like this. So last time we saw you in action was back in March, where you literally made the mad dash with your parents for the border to get home before they closed it. And then, like you said, you've had a couple fights scheduled. Like everybody, the fights have been canceled. They've been postponed. How have you been staying busy mentally between these times? Because you mentioned, you know, it's not so much that, you know, you're not working out, but there is that drop off when you're expecting to fight, and then you find out you can't fight it, and it kind of hits you. How you been handling that mentally, you know, having these fights fall through, and you know, staying mentally ready to fight on the 25th?
Well, yeah, like you say, like when you're a competitor, I've been competing like consistently for 5 years here, and I've had like 153 podium placements, and like I'm always competing. And then it just like the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. So a couple weeks ago, I entered like a protest, you know. It was a jiu-jitsu tournament, submission only. And it was 8.5 hours away. So we drove to that again, the Road Warrior. And it was legal because it was with small groups and all this. And it was black belt and brown belt, 170, but I'm a lot smaller than that. But I decided I needed to compete, and I went 1 win, 1 draw, and I believe 2 other times I got my butt kicked. But it was good to just get in there and, keep competing.
Yeah.
So.
So you mentioned that 1 win. So you beat a brown or a black belt that was 170 pounds and up. What'd you tap them out with? Because I know you got the finish.
It was rear naked choke. Yeah, rear naked choke. Yeah, so it was good.
Dude, that's got to feel amazing. And especially, I mean, I don't care what it is. Anytime I roll with the black belt or a brown belt, anybody that's really a higher belt than me, and they're more experienced and more dominant, and they outweigh me by that much, and I get a reversal or a dominant position, I take that as a small victory. You know what I mean? You got to win and a draw, and then got 2 learning experiences against 200 belts. Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I guess that's jujitsu, not really what you're preparing for, but it's keeping you ready, keeping you in that competitive mindset. Is that something that you feel you needed to do? Because I mean, what TJ was saying earlier, the whole being built up that you're going to fight and then having it drop off and then having it built up again, drop off. It's like, fuck, let me just go compete.
Yeah.
That kind of
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, like it's hard to have those ups and downs, but even if I would have lost every match in that protest, protest, it wouldn't have mattered just to get in there. And again, it was a different sport, but it's still like that, like competition, and it was good because like the gyms have only like fully opened like a couple weeks ago, so it was good to have that type of stuff to keep me in the zone.
Yeah, this isn't really a question. This is just I like the way that you keep putting it, the protest. You know, like you stepped up that much of level of competition and in weight. That definitely is a test in itself. And man, I don't care what grade you want to say you passed with. You definitely passed in my eyes.
Yeah, thank you.
You literally tested yourself against professionals. That's a protest, in my opinion. So, but while you had these fights fall through, the person you're scheduled to fight now, Jeremiah Harper, he actually had a fight, and he was able to compete. So while you're training, you essentially get some, new footage to analyze to see. Did you have a chance to watch that fight exclusively on Trash Talk? And what did you think of Jeremiah's performance? And how do you think, you're able to analyze that? And is there anything different after that fight that you've seen compared to before it?
Yes, I did get to watch his fight on Trash Talk exclusively. And I was very happy with what I saw, and it was good it lit a fire or fanned my fire more just to see that, because I knew that was supposed to be me. And from what I saw, like, not to be disrespectful to Mr. Harper, but I feel like I have the skill set and the physicality to get a win over him. And it was really nice to see that, and it was great.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, and because I think this is the same question that I asked him, with the fact of it being built up, gone away, built up, gone away, and then him having a fight and getting a win, and you having to sit out, and everybody knowing that you two were supposed to be fighting that night, and now it's finally scheduled again. Do you think that this adds more anticipation for the fans and for you two as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because like the saying is, you're only as good as your last fight. And I know, like, I did amazing in my last fight, and he did great in his, so it's great. But like, there's been a lot of time since my last fight, so it's kind of like, the longer you stay out, the more like people might forget about you. But like, that's why I very much appreciate you guys getting me on here. And like with it being booked and not booked and like falling through, I kind of have like the nerves of, oh geez, like this is a new fight have kind of gone away. It almost feels like I've almost done it before, so I'm very excited. I feel like everything will fall into place perfectly.
Man, hell yeah. This is one of those things. Okay, this just popped into my head. TJ and I are always going on about how the amateurs is used to get experience, and experience is one of those things that can't be replaced. Like I could tell you about something all I want, unless you're one of those guys that's willing to accept the knowledge that I'm trying to bring from the experience that I had. It's hard to show it to you unless you've had those experiences yourself. And this experience of the whole quarantine, the fights falling through, all of this stuff is something that is unique in itself. And I don't know if this is ever going to come up again, but do you feel like if a fight was to fall through or a new opponent was to get announced for you, is that going to surprise you at all in the future with all of the things that are going on right now?
No, definitely not. It definitely prepares you for the unexpected, for sure. And with me, like training through all the quarantine and kind of sticking with what I like, my camp and sticking with thinking about fighting, I feel like it was almost like a test for myself to see if I could stay motivated. And I feel very proud that I have. And yeah, like it's life skills, definitely, like all the different quarantine and COVID stuff and sticking through. I feel like I improved not only as a fighter, but a person as well.
Man, I know TJ has something to say, but dude, I love the outlook that you have on it. That it's amazing to see your mindset.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like you said, I like how you phrased that, Damien, how we like to say you have to experience as much stuff as you can as an amateur. Hell, experience in COVID, that's once in a lifetime. So doing it as an amateur when you're not dependent on that, because I mean, there's a lot of guys out that, they get their rent paid by taking fights. And, they can't take those fights in a time like this. So it's perfect to experience that. Even there, knowing what it's like to have an extended layoff. You mentioned how many times you're on a podium. Every weekend, you're somewhere competing, doing something. So having this time, you know what it's like now to have a layoff. It's not something that's going to surprise you later down the road. And so going into this fight with Jeremiah, like I said, he had a chance to fight. Is there anything that you've seen differently as far as your answer to the same question I've asked you previously before the fight was canceled, where I said, what type of fight do you expect and what do you have to bring with you to make sure you get your hand raised on July 25th?
Well, that's good. So, like, as my game plan, like I feel very confident to say, in my last fight, how I ate that spinning back fist, like that really good one. I've been practicing for weeks on the kids' carousel, and I decided that I'm going to do 3 rounds of Fists of Fury, just spinning back fist the whole time. So I don't know what answer he's going to have for that, but I want to see how he does.
As said, we're throwing spinning shit now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's all I'm going to throw. We'll see how he can handle it.
Nate,
Oh,
jeez. This will be a fun fight, man. I mean, I don't care if you're being serious or not. I know if some spinning shit gets thrown, you said it.
Yeah.
And if you don't throw any spinning shit, hey, the art of deception is the key to the art of war. And
oh yeah.
Man, I'm just really excited for this fight. I'm really excited to see how you guys perform. And before we start to get into wrapping everything up, there's just one thing that I want to touch on, and it's the room that you're sitting in right now. Man, there's a lot of – you talked about all the podiums that you got to stand on. Man, those are some nice trophies that you got behind you. Are those – did you and your dad hunt all of those?
Yeah, well, my name's the Road Warrior, and I go to all different types of jungles, and I battle the king of the jungle, and I either come back with a medal, a trophy, or his hide. So this is what you see around me. So yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, you said something, Damien, because I was thinking it, and I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this is by far the most gangster background in trash talk history.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And oh man, I had to touch on that because that bear in the background is just staring me down right now, and it's like to know that you probably took that out is just amazing, and I can't wait to see the test that's sitting in front of you and Jeremiah Harper. Are you able to take him out? Is he able to withstand the test? This is just one of those battles. And before we do wrap this up, do you have anything to say to the fans to make sure that they tune in live on Trash Talk to watch you perform, and also to people, to Jeremiah Harper, anybody, the fans, any sponsors, teammates, anybody like that?
Yeah, I've competed, 13 times in high level competition in Minnesota, and I've won all of them. And I feel like Minnesota has accepted me kind of as like their son from a different country, brother from another mother, son from a different country. But I feel very at home when I compete at Minnesota. So I hope that I have the same turnout of fans again to see this fight, because I know it's going to be an amazing fight. We're both really high level type guys, and we both really want to fight. So it's going to be a great one. Yeah. And thank you guys again for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Man, thank you. We say it once, we say it always. We're nothing without the fighters. I love your attitude going into this fight. I cannot wait for you to come helicoptering across the cage with spin and shit. And hopefully you don't take flight. And it's just, that was supposed to rhyme. We're out of time. This is Trash Talk. Like the video below. Subscribe to Trash Talk with Damien and TJ. Do not be a hoe.
A lot of that rhymed. Was that on purpose?
No.
Oh, that was good.